Hi, this is Helen Hardiman of Hardiman Law, and you're listening to Six Wheels Consulting Disability Podcast with my favorite guy, Matthew Shapiro.
Sweet.
Welcome to the Sixth Wheels Consulting Podcast, dialoguing disability and discussing difference, inclusion, and all abilities in today's world. Now here are your hosts, Matthew Shapiro and Bob Nolly.
Faithful as the morning star. There you are. You found your way back. This is the Six Wheels Consulting Disability Podcast. Hi there. Dr. Bob Nolly. Here's my buddy, your host, Matthew Shapiro. Matthew.
Hello, Bob. I feel like I haven't heard your wonderful voice in quite some time.
I've been cloaked. That means something more to Star Trek fans, but
yes,
yeah,
I got the reference.
You know, I met a young lady who was originally from I think she's from the Ukraine. She learned English by watching Star Trek.
That's awesome.
Oh my, we're all about overcoming challenges on this show.
Yes, exactly.
And I have another example for you today. I thought we might talk about. There is a young lady and since we are in the RVA, but we are global in nature.
Yes.
There is this lady in Minnesota. Her name is Sarah, and we'd love to have you on one day, Sarah. But I'll have to learn how to say your name. I want to say it's Falakowitz. And she works as a therapist in Minnesota at the Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment. And she got this job, but it was difficult to get. Now, in the past, Matthew, you and I have talked about the difficulty in finding work and then getting to work.
Correct.
And this is another perspective for us to consider here. So Sarah, she's very young. She's just 30. Has Usher syndrome. Are you familiar with that?
I am not. There's very few disabilities or diseases I've never heard of, but that is one of them.
Well, it is very rare, and it's a genetic disorder that's caused hearing and vision loss. Now, she's legally blind, but actually the truth of the matter is her vision in both eyes is limited to an area about the size of a roll of toilet paper.
So not very much, in other words.
Not very much. It's like looking down a tube. And, I guess the adjustment can be made, but it's difficult. Well, the one thing she can't do, she can't drive.
Sure.
So right there, that's limiting, what the job outlook looks for her. Just in type, and number as well.
Her ability to get to work.
Yeah, and she said this. She said, I knew getting a job would take me a little bit longer, but I didn't stop. I'm just that kind of kept going, kept pushing. She said, it's just one of my goals, and I was just dead set on it. So it was this difficulty with transportation that is one of the most numerous reasons people with disabilities face higher unemployment rates and more barriers to landing jobs.
Sure.
But something's happening right now. The labor force is so tight. And, we've got some figures here in Minnesota, but, nationwide, every market I go into and talk to folks about, they go, we need people. There are more jobs than people right now.
Sure.
And slowly, but surely, and finally, I would say, employers are turning to look at the disabled. They're looking for a valuable trained labor supply, and the disabled are out there.
Sure.
In this segment of Duluth in northeast Minnesota, the unemployment rate is 5% overall. And, I'm going to go economist on you here a little bit.
Okay.
When we say that we're at full employment, there's still a 5% unemployment rate. So when you see that number, you think, gee, 1 out of 20 people aren't working. There's always people moving in and out of jobs, always. So the economists consider, and this is not political speak, the economists truly consider 5% unemployment rate is full employment because you just don't get any bigger than that.
Sure.
But in the unemployment market, in the unemployment segment, it's like 11%.
Well, and in the disability community, that number's even higher. You're right. It is a topic that you and I have discussed on previous episodes. And we have discussed that there are a number of factors that play towards unemployment. And oftentimes, as most of our listeners know, we are both based out of Virginia in Richmond. And to use our area as one example, one of the big challenges for employment is transportation. And the great example of that is our public transportation system doesn't go out to every aspect of our communities. And so if there is somebody with a disability on the outskirts of our community, they can't get any form of transportation that allows them, that allows them to get to their job effectively. And so, there to the point of this article, yes, there is a workforce of people, particularly people with disabilities, that want to work, but we as a society have to do a better job of putting in place things that can help people achieve those employment outcomes, like better transportation.
That's true. So statewide in Minnesota and here as well, the unemployment rate statewide is 4%, and for the disabled, it's 9%. So just as it is in that microcosm of Duluth, there's like, a 5 or 6% differential there, which is significant. And it's such a gap. Bruce Bach, who is a placement coordinator with a Duluth rehab group there, says he's seeing more and more businesses turn into this untapped workforce. He says it's a trend and it's a need and a necessity all at the same time. But they talk about the barriers as well. And the entire discussion we've had for our 30 or so episodes at this point, still focuses on those barriers.
Sure.
Transportation issues are at the top. Health insurance costs are a concern of employers, accommodations, and, even litigation. And sometimes, you do have to accommodate to get the right candidate in an open position. And if you haven't done it before as an employer, they're fearful of that.
Right.
But now the need is driving them to figure out a way.
Well, and I think what they'll also find, Bob, is that, if and when you find the right candidate and person with a disability to be in a job, you will find that person will remain loyal. They will stay in that job for longer periods of time because, again, giving somebody with a disability that opportunity is what they have been starving for. So if somebody goes out on a limb and says, I'm going to hire, excuse me, everybody, I'm going to hire Matthew, then, I feel a sense of loyalty to that employer. And so, if they treat me right and I enjoy my work and I get paid well and I have the right accommodations and services in place, I'm probably not going to go anywhere for an extended period of time, which means you're going to keep a dedicated, hardworking employee.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody who they were unidentified, but there was a reporter like, it's somebody we've heard of. It's a lady named Christine Fagan. She's at TJ Maxx. We know them.
Yes.
Said the store will move a person to different positions to see what aligns best with them. So they don't give up on them. They go, well, this didn't work. She tells us one story about she had an associate who, when he started, didn't talk to anybody.
Right.
He just stocked. He just worked the shelves, never looked up. But now, a couple of years later, he's being considered for a coordinator position, which is a full-time job. And it's because he and TJ Maxx, the store and the store management, have been very patient and given him small things to do and small things to work on to the point where he has just blossomed.
Well, and I think that shows an employer that is using their word patient, but then also like willing to be flexible, right? And so they're saying, maybe this job doesn't work for him, but let's try another one. It's interesting that they don't immediately, they didn't immediately fire that individual. They tried to find a solution that would work for him based on his strengths and weaknesses and what he's good at. And to me, that's the sign of a good employer, because you recognize the value of good potential talent.
Yeah. And, Sarah, the lady we first started talking about here, she says, she self-describes herself. She goes, I don't look blind, so to speak, because she hasn't disclosed it with her clients or her group at all. It just has never come up. But if it was to come up, she doesn't think she'd shy away from talking about it because it's who she is. She doesn't let it define her, but it's just part of of who she is. She says she keeps coffee tables and trash cans off to the side, and enlarges fonts on her computer and on her tablet, and keeps rooms well lit. And she has a bright yellow keyboard with big, large black keys on it. And that takes care of her. And
yes, she has found the accommodations that work best for her and her needs. I mean, this employment conversation is not one that is just going to, at some point, go away. I think it is one that is going to be ongoing. And again, I think that's where creativity of being self-employed or going into entrepreneurship for yourself, or finding a really great match in terms of what an employer can offer to a potential employee with a disability is really key. There is some work involved with it, but if you find that right match, again, I am somebody who is self-employed and I love it. I struggled with finding employment outcomes, but I am, my business is trending way, way upwards and things are going really well. And I'm happy because I'm doing work that I find I find enjoyment in. I can sort of implement my creative juices and do really, really cool things. But I wouldn't have done that had I not taken the leap to think about self-employment. And I think that's another route that we could consider for employment outcomes for our population.
Oh yeah, most certainly. Most certainly. You've been involved in, I was going to say you've been involved in a project. You've been involved in many projects, but one that came to mind was your service where you help businesses get themselves ready for, if not employees that are disabled, it's customers that are disabled.
Sure. Yeah, we my organization, Six Wheels Consulting, we have a certification program, and we can go in and help certify that that an organization is fully inclusive and accessible. There are similar organizations like that. I know of one in Seattle that's doing great work in Seattle, and we would love to continue to help certify businesses. And so that they can feel like they can best serve the disability population. And if anyone's interested in learning how to become certified, please feel free to reach out to us and we can certainly introduce you to our certification program.
That would be great. And how could they avail themselves of that? Go to the website?
Yeah. So if you go to our website at sixwheelsconsulting.com, there is a way that you can a form that you can fill out that you can get in touch with me to discuss our services. And if you're interested in our certification program that we have developed, I would be happy to connect with you and talk about how we can certify your business.
Yeah, because we can do some talking.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'll let that be the last word. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Six Wheels Disability Consulting Podcast. For my buddy Matthew Shapiro, this is Bob Nolly. In conclusion, keep rolling forward. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.